1:30 mark. However, we're still waiting on some colleagues, so we have quorum and get this show on the road. So bear with us for a few minutes.
I'm still waiting. Supposed to be a second.
Yep. Traffic. And I think Josh Humphreys is the main speaker today. But she'll be quick now.
This one, 15.
Yeah, you okay when we go for
That's
next?
not me,
But,
so.
because it's a lot of money. I like my trust fund.
Oh, yeah, I would much rather.
Okay, I was gonna say, because like, I'm fine to like support it, I mean, I'm definitely support it. I just think that having the finance people, yeah, I was gonna ask if you're okay. No. Okay, okay, I was just gonna ask, because,
I'm okay with it.
okay, I didn't wanna like step on your toes, but just thinking.
I'm okay with the door for it, just also ask Josh.
I'll also, I didn't wanna like throw a curveball, I was like, man, it's a lot of money out of the housing trust fund, I don't want Allison Johnson marching on me.
So this is just the idea was for the community groups.
Okay,
So I started it, I was going to be a bunch of music, 1,000 feet, I'll get it for 50, because other
me be one of them. All right, this, I was gonna stick this in here, but this goes all the way down there, I'm not sure I'll be able to get it out. All right. All right. We have, I think we have everyone. We have two. Uh-huh.
Is it all these four?
Yep, those are two. All right, good afternoon and welcome. I am Councilmember Jason Dozier, Chair of the Community Development and Human Services Committee. I call this meeting of the Community Development and Human Services Committee of Tuesday, November 14, 2023 to order. I am joined by my colleagues to my right, Councilmember Jason Winston, Councilmember Matt Westmoreland, Councilmember Liliana Bakhtiari. To my left, Councilmember Antonio Lewis. That constitutes a quorum. We're also joined by Councilmember Mary Norwood, who I know has a couple items on the agenda today, and we'll all get to that as we get through the agenda. With that, like I said, that constitutes a quorum. So I will entertain a motion to adopt the agenda. There's a motion by Lewis. There's a second by Bakhtiari. Please open a vote to adopt the agenda.
The vote is open. The vote is closed.
All right, the motion to adopt the agenda carries 5 yeas, 0 nays. That takes us to the approval of the minutes. I will go ahead and make the motion to approve the minutes. There's a second. There's a second by Lewis. Please open the vote.
The vote is open.
Let the record reflect that Winston and Bakhtiari are ayes for this vote, and then also that Winston was an aye on the previous vote. All right, the motion carries to adopt the minutes, 5 yeas, 0 nays. That takes us to public comment. Anyone sign up for public comment? Jared's gonna grab that real quick.
Just not mine.
All right, we have one speaker for public comment, Ms. Henry Jordan. And you knew it was you when you I know you're on your way up, but you have 3 minutes. Good to see you.
Thank you. Giving out to the Spirit of God to everyone that's here. Wherefore, as I live, says the Lord God, surely because thou hast defiled my sanctuary with all thy abominations, therefore will I also diminish thee. Neither shall my eye spare, neither will I have pity. Ezekiel 5th chapter 11 verse. We should not desire to make God angry. Jesus had what we need, so seek his plan, James Griff. I say unto you that likewise joy shall be in heaven over one sinner that repenteth, more than over 99 just persons which need no repentance. Luke 15, chapter 7, verse. By righteousness, he refers to the Pharisees who thought they were righteous and thus felt they had no need to repent. Son of man, I have made thee a watchman unto the house of Israel. Therefore, hear the word of my mouth, at my mouth, and give them warning from me. Ezekiel 3rd chapter 17 verse. In the same way, Ezekiel was God's watchman, who was called to warn both the wicked and the righteous. The wicked don't seek righteousness, and the righteous can walk in error. So likewise, whosoever he be of you that forsaketh not all that he has, he cannot be my disciple. Luke 14, chapter 33rd verse. Forsaketh means literally renounce, to give up. Disciples must live in constant readiness to put their means at the disposal of the Lord's ends. Obedience to Jesus should be our goal to avoid hell. The Lord was letting me know that I can't work on your job. I had a dream that I would fall out on the job because it's not God's will. I have to be in God's will, his plan, because his plan will work better than my plan and your plan. And I know trying to see what Christ called me to do in helping the homeless, calling on Jesus. Has a business plan to deliver the people out of a certain situation. So I must do what he says to do. And you saw that you will see that it will be a blessing. You already saw what God has already done, but because you didn't give him the glory for it, I can't work your job. And plus, I must work his plan. His plan created the money. His word created the money, not my money, but his money for his plan for protection of his people. And we need Christ. He don't need us, but I know that I need him. I don't want to go to hell. You might not have the fear of hell, but I feel that I have the fear of hell in me.
Thank you, Ms. Jordan.
Obey Jesus, Christ-like men and women.
All right, that concludes public comment. That takes us to presentations and reports. First up, we have the Department of City Planning for a quarterly update. Commissioner Prince, good to see you.
Thank you. We're happy to be here. See if we can pull up the presentation.
Still working on it. 1 second. All right, you're good to go.
Oh gosh, that's hard to see in here.
Well, and just for, I know the public, for the general public who are here, they might have difficulty seeing my colleagues. You have a printed copy at your desk, so we were at least able to.
Okay,
go through
great.
our
Just
printed
wanted to make sure that y'all can see it. We're going to go over the statistics that we go over with you pretty much every time we're here, starting off with the building permits issued. This starts with fiscal year 24 because we just wrapped up the first quarter of fiscal year 24, and we had 1,811 permits in that first quarter. So we had that surge of permits right after the pandemic, and I think we're headed back towards more 2019 numbers. But not with construction valuation. As you know, it's getting more and more expensive to build. So even with fewer permits, the value of the construction is higher. This slide shows you volume by work stream. And as you know, we have 5 different work streams, and we've added a 6th, which is our affordable housing work stream. We are almost ready to roll that one out. That is a whole work stream for nothing but affordable housing projects. And I'll show you with our staffing where we've added people. Like I said, our numbers are continuing to hold steady on inspections. Interest rates may be up, but people are still building. And we're back to more on-site inspections than before. And developers are continuing to use third-party inspectors. That means that it's just a little bit more convenient for them to get somebody in when they need them, so we offer that option. As you know, the Office of Buildings also handles code enforcement. The first quarter of fiscal year 2024, almost said 14. 2024 is about the same as last year. The complaints are happening in the same places, but what I want you to know is that we have inspectors who work every single weekend. So if something comes up and you need somebody out there right away, you just let us know and we will get somebody there. As always, our goal is compliance, not prosecution. We just want everybody to play by the same rules. This is a new slide, y'all. This one is about building permits by district. And with things slowing down, I wanted to take a look at where things were still happening or where things were happening more than other places. And that's going to be in districts 4 and 10. The west side of the city is just booming. So we have a lot of permits being pulled there. You can see the color-coded map. This one's pretty clear, I think, for people in the room as well. We're down just a little bit from this time last year, but it's still happening, y'all. I want to talk to you about our staffing because I know that some of you have concerns about that. Okay. So we have a total of 384 positions within the department. And when you look at this table on the bottom where it says vacant versus filled, you're thinking, well, Janae, I know you're hiring lots of people. Why are there so many vacant positions? Well, that's because some of our positions aren't funded. Some of the positions are really hard to fill, particularly very specialized building inspector positions, and we utilize the Nova Engineering contract to fill in those gaps for us. We are adding, I want to say 13 positions in Office of Buildings to work on nothing but airport projects. We are adding new affordable housing positions. So this is why the overall number goes up, right? So we've added 13 people in Office of Buildings just for affordable housing, 4 people in the Office of Zoning and Development just for affordable housing. So this really adds up. We're also changing things around a little bit in the Office of Buildings, and we are getting rid of some permit tech positions and changing those to building and development coordinator positions. You've probably heard me talk about our development services team. Air traffic control, does that sound familiar? So we're converting more positions to that type. It helps permits move along faster. So this is good news. Now we're still hiring. We still have a lot of positions available. If you know anybody good, send them to us. We have some exciting news for you. The Department of City Planning has won an award for outstanding planning process in a large community for our freight ATL study. This came from the Georgia Planning Association, which is a chapter of the American Planning Association. Nate Holtzel, please come up here, Nate, was the project manager for this important effort. and he's the one that earned us this honor and recognition. So I know all the DCP team is here. What do y'all think of Nate? Just wanted you to know we're doing other stuff besides permitting. Is everybody excited about the comprehensive development plan? Yeah, that's what I thought. Yeah, we are too. And guess what? Our award winner is the project manager for the comprehensive development plan. Yes, he is. I want to steal his thunder just a little bit, just give you a quick update here. We're getting ready. We've got our public leadership group figured out. Councilmember Dozier is going to be the chair of that, and we're going to get started on our work here. We're going to start meeting, do we have the first meeting scheduled? We're going to start meeting soon, and we're going to have our public meetings starting soon as well. I remember that I promised y'all 50 public meetings. We're going to have them. We are. We're going to do a combination of meetings hosted by the NPUs and pop-up meetings all around the city, because we want to hear from everyone who lives here, not just people who are involved in the NPU system. Our NPUs are super helpful in getting people to come out to these kinds of meetings, so they'll be hosting meetings within their NPU area. Now, we aren't going to hijack NPU meetings for the CDP, but they are going to help us with this important work. So here's what's coming up. Right now, we're working on the public involvement plan. And I want y'all to know that the staff took back the work on the public involvement from the consultant. We did this as a cost-saving measure because that is where you burn your budget in a big planning effort. If you think about that, the consultant would have lots of people at the meetings billing out at $150 an hour for 50 meetings. That's going to add up. So in order to be fiscally responsible and to help us build relationships within our communities, our staff is going to do the community involvement work. We will be the ones staffing these meetings. The meetings with the city will start in February and will go on through the summer. And we'll conclude this effort in 2025. And I'm counting on each of you to help us get the word out and come out to some meetings. Maybe I can get you to facilitate a small group. Wouldn't that be fun? That's what I thought. We have a frozen PowerPoint. There we go. Andrew Walter, he's Assistant Director in the Department of City Planning, is going to come up here and talk to you about this next section, where he is the project manager, and we expect award-winning work from him as well.
Thank you. My name is Andrew Walter with Department of City Planning, and we have not said much about the Chattahoochee Brick Company project and the Chattahoochee Riverfront in a little while, but we have been working on it. And the main news is that we have we received a grant from ARC to provide additional kind of refined design for Atlanta's Chattahoochee Riverfront. That is a portion of the larger Metro Atlanta Trust for Public Lands vision for called the Riverlands, which envisions a trail from Lake Lanier all the way down to Chattahoochee Bend State Park near Noonan, which is over 100 miles. Each local jurisdiction will be responsible for building their own portion, and we've got about 5 miles of our riverfront that we're looking to activate. Within that portion of Atlanta's Chattahoochee Riverfront is the Chattahoochee Brick Company. We are going to be, as I said, we received a grant for additional study of the waterfront from ARC, and we are going to be combining that with the Department of City Planning funds to put out a joint RFP very soon for the planning and conceptual design, kind of preliminary design for the Chattahoochee Brick Company site, as well as the whole recreation corridor along Atlanta's riverfront. And as I said, we anticipate that going out very soon, before the end of the year. One of the other things that we have done to kind of advance the Chattahoochee Brick project is we set up a board, an appointed advisory board. It's an 11-member board. 8 members have been appointed at this point. And we've had 2 meetings. We've got another meeting coming up on the 5th of December. It's going to be at 2 o'clock. It's at the Northwest Fulton County Library at Scotts Crossing. There will be an announcement about that as well. The board was set up. It's it's appointed local community members as well as experts. There's Donna Stevens, who is the founder of the Chattahoochee Brick Descendants Coalition, was appointed to the board, as is Darren Sims. He's the project manager for the National Center for Civil and Human Rights related work called the Truth and Transformation Commission, or the Truth and Transformation Initiative. And they are looking at convict leasing as well as the 1906 Atlanta race massacre. And Darren Sims is also serving on the board. And this board was set up to provide advice along the way to help us interpret the history of the site in a design for a physical design of a park, as well as help us make critical decisions along the way. And in addition to that, we plan to, with the RFP going out soon, we hope to have a consultant on board by this summer to lead the planning work for both of these projects. But in the meantime, we would like to start community engagement just internally or locally with Department of City Planning staff, parks, and watershed staff to help put together an educational program. We're looking at starting in February and going till May or June. We're thinking about 1 lecture or presentation or event per month, and it'll touch on the topics that you can see up here. It's sort of the prehistory of the site, including indigenous history all the way up through the Civil War. Then the main story of the site the story that we want to tell is that period of convict leasing out there at the Chattahoochee Brick site, but then also the context in which that happened. And then kind of the ramifications of Chattahoochee Brick on the reconstruction of Atlanta, and also, its role the role of convict leasing largely in the history of Jim Crow and subsequent civil rights. So that is what we are planning. That's going to be entirely, we're hoping to wrap that up entirely before the planning effort with the consultant starts. And with that, I am finished.
Does everybody know that the anniversary of our NPU system, the 50th anniversary, is next year? Yeah, it's very exciting. We are planning a celebration all year long, actually. So in the first part of the year, we are going to commemorate the past and celebrate everyone who helped to form this very important structure for hearing from our neighborhoods and working together with them to plan our city. In the middle of the year, we are going to celebrate the present. That is everybody who's involved in the NPU system now. And then at the end of next year, we're going to start talking about the future. We're going to have very important conversations about the NPU system and how it's serving us now and how it should serve us going into the future. And what we will be doing is reaching out to each and every one of you. I know we've talked to a lot of you already about these events next year and getting you involved and getting the community involved in this important year of celebration. And with that, I conclude our presentation. We are available for questions.
All right. Thank you so much, Commissioner Prince. I will open the floor to colleagues. Actually, before I open the floor to colleagues, I do want to acknowledge we've been joined by Councilmember Byron Amos. Any questions or comments from colleagues? I have a couple, but I want to give folks an opportunity. All right, well, since folks are a little, okay, Councilman Amos.
Yes, how you doing, Commissioners? Looking at the staffing page, and I know you're still making a lot of good adjustments, just in processing and in staffing. I did have a question to come past my office this week about the reviewers of plans. As you build out your staffing, and sure, next budget go around, we'll hopefully be putting some more money in there. Are we putting people in the best place to make sure that developers, especially of affordable housing, can get in and out of the process as smoothly and as efficiently as possible?
Yes, sir. That was part of the idea behind building the affordable housing work stream. We have hired some people, but not all of them, and we're putting current staff in those roles right now. We're almost there. We have one person who is air traffic control just for affordable housing, Mr. Inyo. He's been promoted to do that, and we've worked up the whole process and work stream just for affordable housing. So the people that review plans won't review any other kind of plans, just the affordable housing plans.
How about the regular reviewers? Because I don't want the business owners to get mad at me, or the multifamily to get mad at me either. So the regular reviewers are solid as well?
Oh, absolutely. Each work stream, and we have 5, has a team that works on those projects. Now, of course, we have the ability to shift as demand changes because all of our people are cross-trained. But we do have this set up now to make sure that our affordable housing projects can move through as quickly as possible.
Okay. And stop my email from blowing up, I have to ask about short-term rental and the piece of legislation centered around Home Park. I know that we are communicating with the community and making hopefully a recommendation to move in whatever way that is best for the city and for the residents, correct?
Yes, absolutely. I would like for us to work together on the Home Park legislation so that we can make sure, together with the law department, that it all works together.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councilman Amos. Well, I'll just follow up on the STR portion. Beyond Home Park, how are things going with the legislation that your office has been working on with the Department of Law for the citywide updates? I know we've been back and forth over the last year trying to get that hashed out, and similarly, I get a lot of questions and concerns from constituents. Don't know necessarily where to turn, especially if there's a problem property that didn't go through even the existing process for applying for a license and still has issues. And then we try to get APD involved, we try to get the solicitor's office involved, but it's definitely an uphill fight without those additional tools in the toolbox for the city of Atlanta. And so just if you can kind of share where things are at and when we can expect to see some legislation that we may have an opportunity to vote on.
So as you know, the ordinance that we've been working on for a while now is a licensing ordinance. And the licensing ordinance says where short-term rentals are allowed, these are the rules for their operation. And there have been some court decisions recently, so the law department has had to really dig in on this and make sure that we are covered with the licensing ordinance. What Councilmember Amos was asking about is a change to the zoning ordinance that might change the allowed uses in a particular area, maybe disallowing short-term rentals in a particular geographic location. They're 2 different parts of the code, but if you don't want short-term rentals in a particular area, that's what you would need to do. On top of the licensing ordinance, there would have to be a zoning ordinance amendment. I will say that we are very close to having the licensing ordinance ready from discussions with the law department, and that when you make proposed changes to the zoning code, that would go through the NPU system for review. So it could take a while, to go into effect. In the meantime, we do have the party house ordinance, and we do enforce that as best we can together with the police department.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Bakhtiari.
Yes, thank you for the presentation and for the background. Just understanding all that with the STR legislation, when can we expect something for, because it takes so long and because we've been waiting, I understand we're waiting now until applications until December of this year, correct?
So we had administratively extended the enforcement date while the short-term rentals ordinance was in progress. And I may do that again because it gave a date or when the new ordinance is adopted. And I think really we ought to just say until the new ordinance is adopted, because that makes a whole lot more sense than going back again and again on this. But in the meantime, let's get this ordinance and let's go through it together. I'd like to schedule a time to meet with each of you as soon as it's ready to walk you through it.
When do we expect that it will be ready?
I'm hoping it will be within the next couple weeks.
Okay. And Ms. Robinson, is there anything that law would like to add, given that this has been tied up in law apparently, that any additional context, does legal feel that it's ready, about ready to be introduced to council members? I believe that Ms. Robinson needs her mic turned on.
Yeah, is there a way we can get her mic on?
I can just play some Jeopardy music.
If you
in
want
the
to use
meantime.
maybe one of the other mics.
Oh my gosh, Amber has legs.
Hi, Amber A. Robinson, City of Atlanta Department of Law. So just to be clear, the updates to the current ordinance that are pending on the zoning committee agenda, and then which is dual referred to this committee, were actually as a result of input received from the administration and Department of Planning following the work session and other work that was done on that legislation earlier in the year. The legislation that is currently on the zoning committee agenda that was introduced by Councilmember Lewis has been approved by the Department of Law. It was approved prior to any of this additional work, but there were certain policy concerns received by the from the Department of Planning and Administration that are being worked through in a substitute, which I do believe also reflects certain conversations that might have been had with the Department of Planning and certain members of council, or the administration and members of council. And so that is what the substitute will reflect. The initial drafting of the substitute, the Department of Law is assisting with that, and once it is completed and approved by the Department of Planning through internal processes, the department would then present that substitute. So it's not that the Department of Law would be presenting this substitute, because it is not, the reason for the substitute isn't because we opined that there was a legal problem with Councilmember Lewis's original legislation. That was not the case. So the substitute will be presented by the administration or Department of Planning upon their decision that it is completed.
Understood. Thank you for that. Okay, it is on. So I understood. So we can expect then probably to have meetings set up with you, Commissioner, by first
I
week
think
of
very
December,
soon.
second week? Okay. So I will hope that we have something available before we end the year. And then also, I believe Andrew, last we spoke, we were supposed to resume the tree ordinance conversations this month.
Yes.
Because we I believe had legislation that we wanted to introduce, or at least edit some legislation that we currently had to go after some of the more low-hanging fruit, but we wanted to wait until we had that meeting. So, and I believe a mediator has been hired, from my understanding. So when can we expect those conversations to resume?
Yes, we are getting ready. And in fact, I have the project manager right here, Andrew.
Hello. The mediator has been hired, and he is doing preliminary interviews right now to kind of establish the landscape for the discussion. We ran into a bunch of very entrenched positions in previous discussions. So
That's a nice
the
way of saying
reason
it.
we brought in a mediator is to help everybody try to think outside of their own perspective. And that means doing a lot of interviews and kind of figuring out where there might be common grounds. I mean, it's a little bit of a mystery how this is. There's some psychology involved there. But at any rate, the schedule that he has given us is he is going to be continuing the interviews this month. In December, we're going to start forming the stakeholder group, establishing ground rules, so on. And then the kind of the discussions will begin in earnest in January, the policy discussions.
Ground rules
will
like
begin.
no biting or hitting or throwing water at each other?
Things like attendance, et cetera, yeah. But it's going to be a bit more structured of a process than it was last time. But we've been told that we will start the real discussions in January.
In January?
Yes.
Okay. And I want to say, I expect it'll be January, but we do have to, the legislation we do have on that we have been waiting on until the session happens. We can hold off until the end of January, but we'll have to start moving on some things by then. But thank you for the background. You're way too nice, Andrew, and your description's quite tactful. If you want to consider a job in politics, just let us know. But no, thank you very much for that, and look forward to the resuming of those conversations. And again, Commissioner, just so you know, at some point, I believe we all were quite busy some time ago, but would love to have a meeting with you and Mr. Zappernick about, again, picking up how come we have still not, we made the promise that we would give more funding for additional arborists for GCP. And from my understanding, that still has not been done, and that promise was made over a year ago. So we need to find out, I'd like to have a meeting with you and him to find out where the city has lapsed on that promise. Because 2 people, or how many is it now for the city in the arborist division?
We have several.
We're up to how many now?
I'm sorry.
For the arborist division, how many people do we have now
I
on
don't know
David's
how
team?
many we have. 11 in the arborist division, but not all arborists.
Okay, so how many arborists do we currently have that are able to go out and do assessments?
Good afternoon, council members. Gregory Pace, Office of Buildings Director. You're speaking in terms of inspectors?
Yes.
There's a total of, I believe there's 6 plus the supervisor. I'll count
So we
them.
currently have 6 people that are able to go out and do inspections of
If I'm not
trees.
mistaken, yes.
That's up
I'll
from-
double check my numbers, but.
Okay, and
while
that is up
you-
from, I believe, 2 or 3 earlier.
No, ma'am. No, ma'am. No, ma'am.
So there,
No, ma'am. Not DCP, not,
No, I'm
Clerks.
talking about David's team. I'm talking about.
David
specific-
Zapparinic,
Yeah,
yes.
and this is something we discussed where we only had, it was reported to us not that, some time ago, that there was, I want to say, Mr. Chair, was 2 or 3 people for the entire city?
I know that number's come up before, I just don't remember the context.
Yeah, and so there was understanding that the number was low, that we were trying to do more to help out David's team. So if somebody could just give me that data, I'd like to better understand. Thank you.
I'll have that for you very shortly.
I appreciate that. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Councilmember Bakhtiari. Councilmember Lewis.
And I got a couple of questions. And the first one, just to confirm, I know that City Council, legislative branch of the City of Atlanta, we submitted a paper that was dual referred, and you all are submitting the administration, and the department will be submitting a substitute?
Right, so after we had that first paper, and we had the workshop session, the joint work session with CDHS and the zoning committee together, and we got all that great input from the community. We summarized all of that into a document, and you may remember we had all of those meetings with all y'all to discuss the input that we received and revisions that we might make because of that input. And we took all of that input and we did a couple of back and forths with the law department here's the input we received, so we think we ought to change, this section to say this and this section to say that. And we've gone through that a couple times now, and they have, I think, almost completely finalized the last version of the substitute so that we can bring it back to you for review.
So can I want to see both of them at the same time? 'Cause I know as the legislative branch, I know that it's our job to send what we want. And so that's why I think we sent that. And thank you for that. The next questions I had were on the building permits issued by council district.
Yes?
Page is just a little confusing to me. And I know I see because you said 10 and 4.
Yes.
I know because they grew by 7, 4 did, and it grew by 2. 10, is that the reason that you said that?
Yeah, because what's happening is overall we're down from this time last year, but in districts 4 and 10, we're up. And not by a lot, but because building permitting is slowing down in general, that it does matter at this point. Those are the areas where we are growing the most.
Okay. So I guess you can look at it differently, right? So that's why I always say we're the legislative side and bureaucrats, right? So everybody got elected officials and bureaucrats, because if I see this and I say, okay, District 9 has 45 issues permitted this year compared to 10 at 20, I would think that District 9 would be more of would have more activity than 10. So I think that was my confusion. Or District 12, which has 44 compared to
the growth is still happening. So even though it's down by a little bit, that is due to national factors. It doesn't speak to the economic health of the district.
Okay. I think similar to Councilmember Bakhtiari, when I say the meeting for a ride around, I know my office has reached out, and to be more specific, this week, I know I sent an email that was taken care of, and I appreciate you all for sending me all the information to get in contact with the owner of the property. But what we have is large developers who own a lot of land who can't get it rezoned as a group, and so they're parsing it out as single-family homes. And so we have a picture and a sign in the yard for a $600,000 house when everything else is $200,000 around it. And so I have community members who are sending me this email with that photo, and they're able to say that. And so that's why I've been asking, similar to Councilmember Bakhtiari, for a ride around.
I would love to do that.
Okay. So the email that we sent, please, that's what I'm asking for. So hopefully that we can make it a ride around. Because I know for some reason, I'm reading the email and it's not happening.
Oh, I would love to do that. And I'd bring some of my staff with me as well.
Okay. Yeah. I look forward to that. And another question on that. So I have new structures, I was happy because when folks talk about displacing people to move in my district, we didn't have it as much, right? But now I'm seeing, because I know development is hitting citywide, I'm seeing these houses that are mansions sitting next door to a house that was there for the last 40 years, and it's making the culture of the community look totally different. And so I know you have you said we have 3 OHCD new hires riding around the city, or we just say we had 6 inspectors. Is there a plan to grow, or do they ride around and just see this stuff?
So for code enforcement in particular, we do a complaint-based code enforcement. Obviously, when our inspectors are out and they happen to see something, they take note of it. But we don't, drive up and down every single street every single day. We don't have the staffing levels to do proactive code enforcement. I'd like to meet with you and discuss your concerns. I know that one of your constituents had inquired about the possibility of a historic district. So, we would be open to having all of those discussions as well. Just maybe an exploratory chat, if you will.
And even if we can, the reason I want to ride around, because I ride around all day. I can ride past this house and say, this shouldn't be here. Or I can look and say, they have a balcony right there. No balconies in this community.
Right.
And so they got 3 balconies at that house. it just went up 2 more floors. So if they're doing that, can we pull up and stop them, or what should I do? I mean, because I know we don't have capacity. I'm okay with, I'm already doing the drive arounds myself. What can I do to prioritize the spaces that are already building? Like I got one in my mind right now, an all wood structure on Brown Mill Road that's about to be the biggest house in my district probably, right? And it's next door to all woods. So what do I do? Because I know he can't. Looking across the street, no house over there looks like that. What can I do to stop them right now?
Let's meet, let's do the ride around, and let's get all of our team together and let's have a brainstorming session on this.
I want to do it in the ride around because I want to just be active while we're doing it. Thank you.
Happy to do it.
All right. Thank you, Councilmember Lewis. Councilmember Bakhtiari.
Thank you. Last question, I promise. So I was curious. So as we're moving into talking about zoning 2.0 and these next phases and everything else, has there been any conversation of operating our housing plans off of the housing deficit map, knowing the population growth that we have in the next 20 years, dividing that equitably amongst all neighborhoods, giving people an opportunity, giving people each neighborhood a range of numbers to work around, so we're actually allowing people to create master plans over the next year based on how much housing has to come into their community over the next 20 years so they can choose, and even maybe going so far as to give people numbers to aim for in terms of workforce, affordable, and market rate, just so we have more of a vision. I see that as one way to defeat NIMBYism around density, but giving people an opportunity to have some level of control, but with actual numbers that we provide to them.
That's a great question, and I would defer to the Housing Strike Force team, who has all of that really in-depth data by neighborhood. As you know, we have neighborhood statistical areas that align with the NPU boundaries, and it's very detailed census information, which includes housing, that can be very helpful in these sorts of discussions. It is the sort of information that we will need to present when we are out doing the CDP meetings, because we have to talk about the growth that is coming to our city and how to accommodate all of these people who are coming while not displacing the people who are already here.
Yeah, I think one surefire way to make sure people here they're not displaced is to build the housing for those who are coming, so those who are at risk of being displaced don't have to give up their housing stock. So, but yes, I understand, and I will speak with the Housing Strike Force and see if we can move that plan forward.
All right. Thank you, Councilmember Bakhtiari. Any other questions or comments from colleagues?
Oh, Councilmember Bakhtiari, we do have that number for you on the arborists. There's 5 arborists and the 1 supervisor. 11 total people in the arborist division, but 5 are the arborists. 1 is the supervisor.
Thank you.
I do have one final question for you, Commissioner Prince. I appreciate the department sharing the number of permits issued over the last few years, quarter over quarter. I am curious in terms of, like, can't think of a better way to put it, but any sort of data tied to how long it takes to process those permits. I feel like I've seen y'all present that information in a previous meeting, but I also know that certain types of permits can take longer than others. About half my district falls under SPI, so everything that goes through requires an SAP. Just trying to think through, and at least in the conversations I've had with community members or development partners and others who have had some stickiness in getting through the department, if we could see some of the data that y'all are looking at to see if there's some seasonality, if there's any long-term implications for y'all's internal processes, whether those issues have been rectified with some of the reforms y'all put in place this year. In my case, I'm particularly interested in SAPs, but I imagine my colleagues might be interested in other types of permits. So if that's something y'all could put together and just email that to myself or Mr. Evans, I think we would appreciate that as well.
We'd be happy to do that.
All right. Thank you. Any final thoughts? All right. Well, Commissioner Prince, thank you so much, and looking forward to, I think we have a meeting that we're working on scheduling around CDP shortly too. So appreciate all the work y'all are doing, and looking forward to our future collaboration together. All right. Colleagues, we do have one more presentation today. We have the Atlanta Continuum of Care quarterly update. Annie Harila. I apologize if I mispronounced your last name, but I'm sure you will correct me in front of our millions of viewers at home. So please welcome and thank you for joining us today.
Good afternoon. Thank you. Hyrilla is fine.
Okay. All right.
I'm happy to be here to share with you all some updates on our projects at Partners for Home, which is the lead of the continuum of care in Atlanta. But I don't think this is the correct presentation.
Wrong presentation. One moment. You're more than welcome to brief on behalf of the Department of Customer Service if you would like to.
I don't know if I can speak to that. Do you have Jeopardy music?
Not today. I'm not going to embarrass myself in front of a recording. Could tell jokes for a little bit.
Instead of the Jeopardy song, Councilman Dozier could tell us about the time he was actually on Jeopardy.
I lost. I prefer not to reminisce about that time. It was fun. I did make it to final day. I got that question wrong because apparently I didn't read enough Roald Dahl as a kid. So. I will also acknowledge that being in the city council chambers makes these awkward pauses even more awkward than they typically are. So. I will share that my one claim to fame when I was on Jeopardy was that I threw up a "Peace Up, A-Town Down" during the introduction, now when they put me on the screen, so it's there forever. All right, look. I don't even know any dad jokes, surprisingly. Like I find the ones that I come across funny, but I don't ever remember what they are. I know. It's tough, on the spot and everything.
I can resend the presentation if it's needed.
We have it, it's just getting it.
Oh, but I can, yeah. All right.
Give us
So-
1 second.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we're almost there. But that's excellent initiative by my colleague, Councilman Westmoreland. So that was excellent initiative on your part. We're almost there. All right. Ms. Harrella, thank you so much. And just so you know, I know that adds some pressure, so, you know, all that awkward silence, but please, once again, welcome, and the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. I'm happy to be here. I'm Annie Hyrilla. I'm the Director of Housing at Partners for Home. And I'm going to talk you all through some updates on our major projects happening at Partners for Home, and throughout the continuum of care. So first, I'll provide an update on our Quick Build Initiative units. This is an effort to construct 500 new developments, and we're starting with a site of 40 Quick Build units. Next, I'll talk through our LIFT progress, which is our work to house 1,500 households by the end of 2024. I'll give you an update on our PSH pipeline initiative, and then also talk through the point-in-time count this year, which will be on January 22nd. And I'll do an ask for volunteers if anyone wants to help out.
Is she waiting?
No, now the remote is not working. You don't have to volunteer right now. Okay. So to give you all some background on the quick delivery units, if you're not aware, many of you are probably aware of how this initiative started. The mayor's charge was to create 500 quick delivery units, and this came from a few barriers that we're seeing. One is that construction of new affordable housing developments have lengthy construction timelines. We are developing 550 units through our pipeline efforts, but those projects are still coming online and will continue to come online over the next few years. In addition, as you all are aware, affordable market rents are becoming few and far between, and so needing to increase affordable housing quickly is one of our efforts that we're working toward. So an executive order was issued for funds to be transferred to Partners for Home in order to hire a developer. A small group of individuals at Partners for Home and within the community began to tour different tiny home communities throughout the country. One of those communities is called Pallet in South Carolina. Another is called Dignity Moves in Santa Barbara, and that was so that we could really gain an understanding of how these communities operationalized and how they're functioning. We issued an RFP for a developer partner and received 10 applicants. We selected Atlantica Properties, being led by Darian Dunn, and his team is working quickly now, and I'll give some updates on their construction as well. We currently have an RFP out for a site operator as well as service provider for this site. This gives you an overview of the mock-up for the site. As you'll see here, there are 40 modular units. Each unit will have an individual bathroom, which makes them eligible for HUD vouchers. Our partners at Atlanta Housing are dedicating 40 vouchers for each of these units so that individuals are able to move in quickly to affordable housing. This image shows the 4-courtyard design, and construction began actually in October. We are planning to finish in late November, and ideally we'll have move-ins before the end of this year. 2 of these units are repurposed container modules from Macon. The rest were not able to be utilized, so the other units are being constructed right now. In addition to those 40 units, there will be a community room, a laundry room, kitchen, meeting room, ample space for community to develop and for services staff to really have a presence at the site as well. 32 of these 40 units will be ADA accessible. We are excited for this. It is a need in the community. It's a need for this population to be able to have units that are ADA accessible for each individual. So to give you a little bit of background too, and some of the planning that went into this site, Atlantica Properties consulted with some trauma-informed designers as well as different community partners in order to develop a community that would be trauma-informed and serve a population of individuals who have experienced chronic homelessness. They landed on designing with earth tones and greens. Trees Atlanta will be able to landscape the property. There'll be a dog park. As you can see from this image, there will be outdoor seating with table and chairs. So a lot has been taken into account in order to really provide a site that will best serve this population. I'm going to shift gears a little bit now and talk about our lift work. Our lift work consists of some main areas of focus. One is our encampment decommissioning work, which happens in tandem with our outreach and navigation work, and then as well as our housing and rapidly rehousing work. So we are working closely with our outreach partners throughout the community, Hope Atlanta, Anise, Frontline, Zaban, Step Up, Gateway, and In Town, thank you, who are working, doing outreach at encampments. Thus far, 10 encampments have been closed. To give you kind of a summary or breakdown of where these individuals went, you can see we track per encampment where each individual is going and how they're engaging in services. So overall, 291 individuals went directly from encampment to a shelter. That's either the Motel 6 we were operating in Decatur or a shelter within the continuum of care, such as Gateway Shelter. 27 were housed immediately from encampment into housing through our diversion efforts. And then total 450 individuals were engaged. And I'll talk a little bit on the next slide about where they've gone into housing and the numbers that we're seeing there. Just to give you all some understanding of what's happening currently, we do have outreach teams that are outreaching at encampments. We have some teams who are working with individuals at the Creek, which is in Buckhead, Joseph E. Lowry, I-20, which is in the West End, and then Cooper Street, which is in Mechanicsville. And so far, 153 individuals have been engaged at those encampments, and they're working on document readiness and helping those individuals apply to housing right now. So this map shows you a visual of where the encampments were located, and it gives you a breakdown per encampment of housing numbers. So from these encampments, out of the 450, a total of 384 now have been housed in their own units. Again, 27 of them were housed through diversion, and 357 were housed through our rapid rehousing project, which offers rental assistance and case management for individuals. Overall, as I said, our efforts are to house a total of 1,500 households by the end of 2024. We've currently housed 905 households. 357 are in rapid rehousing. 344 have been housed through our COC placements, which are permanent supportive housing that are already within our continuum of care that we refer to from our coordinated entry system. 94 have been housed with vouchers through Atlanta Housing and our partners at DBHDD, which specifically assists with the Georgia Housing Voucher. And then 110 individuals have moved into our PSH pipeline units, which are our newly constructed units, and I'll talk about those a little bit as well. To give you all an idea of the population that is being served, I wanted to provide a breakdown of the group of 905 households and where they're coming from. 332 of those households were experiencing unsheltered homelessness before moving into housing. 298 of them were experiencing chronic homelessness, which is defined by 12 months or more of homelessness or 4 episodes within 3 years and a disabling condition. And 236 were both unsheltered and had experienced chronic homelessness. So I'll give a brief update on our pipeline units. I think Catherine had briefed you all at the last update. So just to provide kind of some updates on the properties that are coming online. And I apologize, this is probably, the numbers are a little bit difficult to see. But this is our effort to develop 550 permanent supportive housing properties and units. To date, there are 9 properties online, and 168 individuals have been housed throughout those 9 properties. This image is of 55 Milton, one of the properties that came online a few months ago, and has 18 tenants currently living there who are receiving assistance through Atlanta Housing, through vouchers, and then through Fulton County DBHDD, who provides the intensive case management services there. It should be said that this wouldn't happen without the work of our partners. I want to include Invest Atlanta as well as being partners in this work and making sure these properties come to fruition. By the end of this year, we are anticipating a total of 14 properties to be online, and ideally will house 205 more individuals. Construction timelines are sometimes a little bit hard to estimate. They move slightly slower than we want, but that's the projection at this point. The image in the middle is of Stanton Park, which is projected to come online end of this year or early next year to house 10 individuals. And then we're actually slated to be above our goal of 550. We'll have 610 units online once each property does come online, and that will be, 610 units that are spread throughout 25 different properties. This map shows you a visual of where all of these properties are located. The green properties are currently online, and the pink properties are coming online. The blue is actually the Beltline. We wanted to be able to show proximity to the Beltline, to transportation. When evaluating these developments, we really take into account how close they are to resources and accessibility for the population that we serve. And then these are the 14 units that are in different stages of construction or development or closing. We are hoping that by the end of 2026, these properties will all be online so that we have 610 units total. Okay, so now is when I'm gonna ask for volunteers. We have our annual point in time count, which is actually a HUD mandated count of every individual who's experiencing homelessness. This happens annually across the country. We do ours usually the second to last week in January. The night of count will be teams going out into the community starting around 8 p.m., ending between 2 and 3 a.m. to count individuals who are actually unsheltered experiencing homelessness and to be able to survey them. This data provides really valuable demographic information that's needed for us to best serve our community, and also helps HUD to determine how resources will be aligned going forward. In addition to the night of count, we do day site counts, which start the day after the 23rd through the 28th. And that's going to places like libraries, shelter centers, soup kitchens, to be able to survey every individual who is experiencing homelessness that week. This being said, we need over 300 volunteers. It's a great way to be involved in the community and be involved in an effort. We've had council members in the past volunteer and attend, which has been great. We really appreciate the advocacy and the work that you all have been doing. If you're interested, please feel free to contact me or Abby Bracewell, and we can talk you through what volunteering will look like. And those are my updates.
All right. Thank you so much. Before I turn the floor over to colleagues, I do have a couple of quick questions. The first is, I guess, just with regards to the pit count. I'm curious, do y'all coordinate or collaborate with some of our private partners that have some interest in addressing our larger challenges around homeless encampments? So I think about our railroads, for instance. I know there are a lot of encampments that settle on railroad-owned property. And I don't know if Norfolk Southern or CSX work with you all as far as the pit count. I imagine once you identify those individuals, it becomes much easier to get those folks resources and get them into housing. What does that look like for y'all in terms of not just with that particular example, but more broadly with our corporate partners across the city?
Yeah, that's a great question. Not necessarily private partnerships, but we work closely with we have a MARTA team Actually, Hope Atlanta has a MARTA team that works continuously, and they lead the efforts in tandem with MARTA staff the night of, so that they canvass every area and every MARTA station within the city. And then we also work with airport teams who do outreach at the airport. We know that there are significant encampments and individuals experiencing unsheltered homelessness at both of those locations. We could definitely look into working with some of our partners at the railroad to identify maybe how to work more closely with them. Although we have outreach teams at those locations, we haven't worked directly with that organization.
Thank you. And then my next question is for the permanent supportive housing. How permanent is that supportive housing? And I ask that because I recognize that a lot of our housing programs that lean heavily on state funding, whether it's LIHTC credits, which are issued by the DCA, or housing opportunity bonds, all these sorts of things, that there's typically a 15-year affordability period baked in with the possibility for an additional 15-year renewal. And then that property then becomes there's no requirement for that property manager or developer to keep it affordable beyond that point. For the permanent supportive housing units that y'all are identifying, do y'all run into that same limitation? Because I imagine there's some developments that are using public funds that have those sorts of limitations, or are y'all working with development partners that are doing these sorts of ground leases that allow for permanent affordability, or a combination thereof? But I know you had like 20 units for like the Milton and 15 units for Trinity Flats. What does that look like 20, 30, 40 years from now? Are those still going to be set aside for our unsheltered population?
Yeah, that's a great question. And to your point, each development is different. Developers sometimes will use LIHTC or tax credits in part of their funding sources. Each property, though, is similar in that there is a voucher from Atlanta Housing and services that are dedicated for the next 30 years from Fulton County DBHDD. I would have to get you kind of a breakdown of each property and the sunsetting of any type of funding for that property specifically.
Okay. And so just to clarify, they're permanent in the context of typically y'all are putting folks in the hotels, or historically y'all put folks in the hotels or in the shelters and places to serve a much more immediate need, but it's still not like the 99-year ground lease that we typically see. To your point, it depends on the location, it depends on the development, but there's still potential for a sunset based on how the financing was structured for that development.
Yes, but I will say the intent for permanent supportive housing is that the individual can live there their entire life. They don't need to move on, and they have that voucher and those services for their entire life. So it would be our expectation we would find ways to continue.
Okay, thank you. And then one of the things I've been very curious about is with regards to the encampment closures. I know the slide that you shared that, X amount of people were rehomed out of an encampment. I imagine, flash forward 5 years from now, Partners for Home does a similar presentation, and those same locations may be on the same slide, because I recognize that there's kind of a life cycle. Encampment closes, that space is vacant, and then the next generation of unsheltered folks identify that free area and another encampment starts. And so I don't know if y'all have any data that shows how typically these encampments last from beginning to end. And I know y'all are collecting data around where those individuals end up after the encampment has been closed. But just thinking about the encampment themselves, once the closing happens, how much time do we have to figure out how to deter folks from wanting to identify that site for a future encampment going forward? I recognize it's not always the same individuals, which is why it's kind of it's cyclic, but the more insights we have into the cycle, the more we can identify policy tools to address the issue more holistically. I don't know if y'all have that data, or if that's...
Sure. It is a challenge, to your point, and we're working with our partners at DPW and APD to identify mitigation efforts. It is very important that we identify those mitigation efforts and they're put in place quickly after an encampment is closed. Or we also do see repopulation. We are tracking, because we have outreach teams working at these encampments, that there may be some repopulation at. We could look into getting some of that data for you.
Thank you. And then just I guess just two more notes. With regards to the 184 Forsyth project, I recognize that we have some legislation that we'll be discussing today at City Council or at this committee meeting. But I just want to say just big kudos to you and your team and all of y'all, not only just with Partners for Home, but with the administration, with Josh Humphreys and his team, and with Atlantica for just being innovative in terms of how do we address this housing issue. I recognize that we all want to see, maybe I should dial that back. Many of us want to see more density in more of our communities across the city. I know there was an effort to do a multifamily development at that 184 Forsyth spot or location. Didn't get the RFPs that we wanted, but we are still moving forward and pressing ahead with a housing opportunity that addresses an immediate need for many of our residents. And the fact that y'all are delivering this project in just the next couple months is remarkable. And I appreciate just y'all's thoughtfulness about trying to do what we can to get folks housed. I recognize that project is still kind of in a pilot, and we want to see where there might be other opportunities to do something similar across the city. But just want to give the Partners for Home team, the administration, and other partners who have been supportive of this, just y'all's just due, because I know it's important to think outside the box where we can to get folks into homes at the end of the day. Just my last comment is would invite the Partners for Home team, if you have any case managers or anyone that are looking for opportunities to engage with our unsheltered population. My office is doing 2 events this week, one tomorrow at Pathways off of Route David Abernathy. It's a Thanksgiving dinner. It's during lunchtime, but it's a Thanksgiving dinner for our unsheltered folks who live in the West End community. And we're sponsoring a similar event with the West End Seventh-day Adventist Church on Saturday. We'd love to have folks who have resources to be able to attend. I'm looking forward to meeting with our unsheltered neighbors, but I want to be able to give them some guidance and some direction about how they can get permanent housing, how do they get fed beyond just the Thanksgiving dinners that are being provided, and how do they get connected with the broader continuum. So I'm happy to connect with you offline to make sure y'all are aware of when and where those events are happening. I imagine churches and faith communities across the city are doing similar events. So just as y'all are thinking annually about how to connect with these individuals, that might be a touch point that y'all might already be doing. So apologies if I'm preaching to the choir, but just thinking about my own community, my own district, I'm excited about these events, but want to make sure y'all are aware so that we can get the folks the help they need.
Yeah, that's great. I would love to connect with you so you can have some support. And thank you for your support.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, I'm going to shut up now. Councilmember Bakhtiari.
No, thank you for your presentation and for your work. I was curious, is there any hotel program that's currently up and running right now?
Not through Partners for Home or the continuum of care that we're operating or funding.
Thank you. There was one earlier, there was one not that long ago, from my understanding, correct?
The Motel 6 in Decatur.
Okay, and have people from that location been rehoused at some of these locations?
Yes.
Yes.
I do have data on how many individuals from the motel went into housing and what type of housing. I don't have it with me, but I can provide that. Everyone from Motel 6 has either moved into housing or gone to some other option.
Understood. So glad to that. Would love to see the data. And I was wondering if there's any programming at all that targets, if there's any outreach to short-term stays. I know that's a very big ask because where on earth do you start? But is there any type of outreach or any type of coordination with any of the short-term stay rentals that may, I don't even know how to even ask this because I'm sure that that's such a difficult ask because obviously people who are sheltered but homeless, like has there been any outreach to a motel, like, you know, any of the motels where people might be staying and not able to get out of that system at all? Does that make sense?
Outreach to individuals who are currently experiencing homeless but staying at a hotel.
A short-term stay.
Yes, there are outreach efforts that happen. We do have outreach teams or diversion teams that will go to hotels if we're aware of individuals who are doing a short-term stay and are in need of actual permanent or long-term stay housing.
And that referral typically happens once someone has made contact with you all and made you aware that there is a family that might, or an individual that might need assistance.
Usually that happens. Hotels, to my knowledge, are not necessarily frequented by outreach teams like weekly, but I could follow up and see what kind of efforts are happening regularly.
I wouldn't expect you all to be, that's a lot. And so my question was, is that done only by referral, or if there's like any type of programming or any discussion with any of the chains to report to the city if they're, I was wondering if there was anything like that. It would be difficult to set up. I have been looking and researching other cities just to try to get around people. I've worked with so many people that end up staying in short-term spots because they don't want to sleep under a bridge, or they're out panhandling for that, but it's not consistent enough, because obviously those motels don't offer any kind of deal. They don't care if you're struggling, has been my experience. So I was just wondering if there had been any programmatic research on how to set up a system to work with those owners to notify the city of when that's happening. But that is a very big lift and a very big ask. I don't expect you to do that. I'm not saying like you're falling short by not doing that. That's a very big ask. I was just wondering if any research had been done at all into setting up any kind of system that could help people that we might be missing.
Yeah, we don't have research, but what has happened in the past is community members, or actually individuals who are at the hotels, will call 311. And so then that's the report system that will notify outreach teams of need for assessments of those individuals.
Got it. Okay. And then my question was also, what are typically the services that are offered after somebody is placed in permanent supportive housing?
So we have intensive case management that it's different for each of our projects, but for our permanent supportive housing pipeline units, we have intensive case management, which is essentially a 2 staff to 20 client ratio for each individual who is in housing. It involves everything from assisting a client to gaining income or applying for Social Security, to addressing any comorbid mental health, substance abuse issues that may be happening as well. So they're really multifaceted. Additionally, when someone moves into permanent supportive housing within our quick build units, we are procuring a service provider to be able to serve a 1 to 10 client ratio.
Okay, that's great to hear. Is there, for the individuals that may not have the ability to live on their own, or might experience disability, either mental or physical, is there a plan for those who are not able to live completely independent?
It is a barrier that we do see, and there are different levels of that, to your point. If someone is not able to live independently, there's usually some wraparound care management that's happening to establish what the next plan is for that individual in some type of other home or assisted living facility. We don't have within our continuum of care necessarily the right option for those individuals. It's something that we are continually working on. We have a small collaborative that meets to look at the need for that population, really working with Grady Health System to see what they're seeing, as well as we know that there's some need.
Yes, I would imagine it's also difficult with Grady if we have somebody who's experiencing a mental health crisis and we ask for a 1013 or something of that nature, and because they have been unmedicated on the street for a while, either it takes 3 or 4 hours for Grady to show up, or they don't show up at all. So I know that they are backlogged. So would also just please know that if there's anything that I can do or any of us can do to help with escalating the conversation with Grady, which I'm sure you all have under control, but any additional support that can be offered, because obviously troubleshooting these systems is a lot, especially in an economy where we're basically manufacturing our own sheltered population. So anything that we can do, but thank you so much for your work, and deeply grateful for the report and for what y'all are doing, and excited to have 2 of these units coming online in my district by the next year. So
awesome.
And we're currently scouting more locations. So
great.
Happy it's happening.
Thank you so much.
All right, thank you, Councilmember Bakhtiari. Any other questions or comments? All right, thank you, Ms. Harrella. And then Katie Howard from my team is going to hand you some of my cards. If you have a card, you can hand one to her as well so we can stay in contact about the events coming up this week. All right, that takes us to communications. Mr. Evans, you can sign a caption for item number 1.
23C 5118, a communication by Councilmember Byron Amos, District 3, appointing Ms. Linda Adams to serve as a member of the Commission on Aging. This appointment is for a term of 4 years.
All right, colleagues, Ms. Adams is not here today, so we'll go ahead and hold this item. So I'll move to hold.
Second.
Second by Amos. Please open the vote.
The vote is open. The vote is closed.
Item is held. 5 yeas, 0 nays. All right, that concludes communication. That takes us to ordinances for first reading. Mr. Evans, if you can sound those items.
Item number 2 is 23-01627, CDP 2314, an ordinance by Community Development Human Services Committee to amend the land use element of the 2021 Atlanta Comprehensive Development Plan so as to redesignate property located at 985 Gun Club Road number 8, 989 Gun Club Road number 9, 993 Gun Club Road number 12, 1005 Gun Club Road, 2082 Hollywood Drive number 13, 2086 Hollywood Drive number 14, 2090 Hollywood Drive number 14, 2094 Hollywood Drive number 15, and 960 Cato Street, 984 Cato Street number 6, 988 Cato Street number 7, 992 Cato Street number 9, 996 Cato Street number 11, from the low-density residential 0 to 8 units per acre land use designation to the high-density residential land use designation and for other purposes. Item number 3 is 23-01628, CDP 2318, an ordinance by Community Development Human Services Committee to amend the land use element of the 2021 Atlanta Comprehensive Development Plan so as to redesignate property located at 1407 Beecher Street Southwest from the single-family residential land use designation to the medium-density residential land use designation and for other purposes. Item number 4, 23-01629, CDP 2320, an ordinance by Community Development Human Services Committee to amend the land use element of the 2021 Atlanta Comprehensive Development Plan so as to redesignate property located at 2348 Hosea L. Williams Drive Northeast from the single-family residential land use designation to the low-density commercial land use designation and for other purposes. Item number 5, 23-01630, CDP 2321, an ordinance by Community Development Human Services Committee to amend the land use element of the 2021 Atlanta Comprehensive Development Plan so as to redesignate property located at 657 Jones Avenue Northwest from the single-family residential land use designation to the medium-density residential land use designation and for other purposes. Item number 6, 23-01631, CDP 2323, an ordinance by Community Development Human Services Committee to amend the land use element of the 2021 Atlanta Comprehensive Development Plan so as to redesignate property located at 667 and 673 Thurman Street Northwest from the single-family residential land use designation to the medium-density residential land use designation and for other purposes. Item number 7, 23-01643, an ordinance by Community Development Human Services Committee authorizing the mayor on behalf of the Department of Parks and Recreation to accept a reimbursement grant from the Georgia Recreation and Parks Association in an amount not to exceed $200,000.00 in accordance with Section 2-910 of the Atlanta Code and authorizing an amendment to the fiscal year 2024 intergovernmental grant fund budget to anticipate and appropriate and authorize the mayor or his designee on behalf of the City of Atlanta to enter into a memorandum of understanding with the Georgia Recreation and Park Association and for other purposes.
All right, thank you so much. That concludes ordinances for first reading. That takes us to ordinances for second reading, item number 8. If you could sound that caption while you're doing that, because I know it's a longer walk than we typically have with Committee Room 1. But Dr. Serena Walker, if you could come up to the podium while he sounds the caption.
It's 23-016-15, an ordinance by Councilmember Jason Dozier authorizing the mayor or his designee on behalf of the City of Atlanta Department of Labor and Employment Services Workforce Development Agency, also known as WorkSource Atlanta, to accept a Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act Dislocated Worker Program grant in the amount not to exceed $431,449.00 from the Technical College System of Georgia Office of Workforce Development, to authorize the Chief Financial Officer to amend the FY24 Job Training Grant Fund budget by adding to anticipations and appropriations in the amount not to exceed $431,449.00 and for other purposes.
All right, we have Dr. Serena Walker, the Deputy Director of Finance for WorkSource Atlanta. Good to see you. Thanks for joining us.
Good to see you all also, and thank you as usual. I'm here to ask your permission to receive and accept funding. This is the first of 2 grants for this fiscal year purposed for the provision of services to dislocated worker citizens age 18 and older from the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act.
Any questions or comments from colleagues? There's a motion to approve by Westmoreland. There's a second by Bakhtiari. Please open the vote.
The vote is open. The vote is closed.
All right, the motion is favorable, 5 yeas, 0 nays. Next item, number 9, ordinance 23-0-1617. Colleagues, we actually have a substitute for this particular item. The substitute, colleagues, trying to think of a nice way to put it, but sometimes I suffer from a little bit of nonprofit brain, and so we added as some whereas clauses and in the ordained section, just some requests for regular reporting for specific KPIs tied to the 184 Forsyth project, which y'all heard a little bit about before in the Partners for Home presentation. And so recognizing that this project is a pilot and we want to see this project not only succeed, but serve as a catalyst for future projects like this across the city of Atlanta, we wanted to make sure that we were collecting as much data and using that data for future decision making as best as possible. So that's really what this substitute hopes to accomplish. So I'll move to bring forward the substitute. There's a second by Winston. Please open the vote.
The vote is open. The vote is closed.
All right, the substitute has been brought forward. 5 yeas, 0 nays. Mr. Evans, if you can sound the caption, and then Mr. Humphreys, if you can come to the podium.
Item number 9 is 23-0-1617, an ordinance by Councilmember Jason Dozier as substituted by CDHS, authorizing the mayor or his designee on behalf of the City of Atlanta to execute a ground lease agreement with Partners for Home for the property known as 184 Forsyth Street, Southwest Atlanta, Fulton County, Georgia. Tax parcel ID numbers listed here for a lease term not to exceed 5 years to be used to develop quick delivery housing on public land as part of the City of Atlanta's Rapid Housing Initiative, waiving the competitive procurement provisions contained in Article 10 Procurement and Real Estate Code of the City Code of Ordinances and for other purposes.
All right, Director Humphreys. Never know to call you director or senior policy advisor. If you could, if you don't mind, on behalf of the public, let us know your name.
Hey everyone, Josh Humphreys, Senior Advisor to the Mayor. So you heard a bit about this project earlier, so I won't get into a ton of detail if I can answer any questions you have. This authorizes a 5-year ground lease on the property. As you mentioned when you were talking earlier, the long-term goal in this property for us still is to do ground-up development. So one of the benefits of the delivery method that we're using here is that it is semi-portable, so it can serve an immediate need right now, but if the market improves in South Downtown, there's opportunity for this to be relocated or decommissioned depending on kind of what the state of it is in 5 years, and we do ground-up development. So this authorizes that, and then you mentioned the changes that we added to the paper.
All right, any questions or comments from colleagues?
Second.
Seeing none, I will go ahead and move to approve on substitute. There's a second by Westmoreland. Please open the vote. The vote.
The vote is open. The vote is closed.
And the item is
5 yeas.
favorable on substitute, 5 yeas, 0 nays. And just to apologize to the public, the later the day gets, the more my drawl comes out. So please sound the next item number 10.
Item number 10 is 23-0-1618, an ordinance by Councilmember Liliana Bakhtiari to amend the land use element of the 2021 City of Atlanta Comprehensive Development Plan so as to designate property at 1230 Beachview Drive Southeast and 1234 Beachview Drive Southeast, Atlanta, Georgia 30316 to the single-family residential land use designation and further purposes.
All right, colleagues, I believe this needs to be held to travel with the
We need to have a CDP hearing.
to have this CDP hearing. Thank you so much. So I'll go ahead and move to hold. Second by Bakhtiari. Please open the vote.
The vote is open. The vote is closed.
And the motion to hold is favorable, 5 yeas, 0 nays. The item is held. That concludes ordinances for second reading. That takes us to resolutions. Mr. Evans, please sign the caption.
Number 11 is 23R4436, a resolution by Councilmember Mary Norwood authorizing a contribution in an amount not to exceed $20,000.00 from the District 8 discretionary fund account to the Loring Heights Neighborhood Association and for other purposes.
All right, Councilmember Norwood, I believe this is the paper, one of the papers that you were going to speak to today. Did you want to add anything before we? Nope. All right, well, motion to approve by Westmoreland, second by Winston. Please open the vote.
The vote is open. Okay, the vote is closed.
And the item is favorable, 5 yeas, 0 nays. Next item.
Item number 12, 23R4437, a resolution by Councilmember Mary Norwood authorizing the City of Atlanta to donate a total amount not to exceed $250,000.00 to Livable Buckhead pursuant to Section 6-306 of the City of Atlanta's Charter to support Livable Buckhead's creation of a workforce housing pilot program in Buckhead, authorizing the mayor or his designee to enter into any necessary agreements to effectuate the donation, to authorize the chief financial officer or his designee to make the donation authorized hereby from the accounts listed herein and for other purposes.
And colleagues, before I turn the floor over to Councilman Norwood, please be advised that there is a supplemental PowerPoint presentation that was provided to you. So there is additional information in your CDHS packets if you are looking for that information. Councilman Norwood, did you want to add anything? I know that we have some guests with us today. We have Denise Starling with Livable Buckhead. We have Josh Humphreys with the administration. One of the three y'all I imagine will speak to this first. I wasn't sure the order of operations that we wanted to do.
Go ahead.
Hey, Mr. Humphreys.
Hey again, everyone. So first, I want to thank Councilor Norwood for your leadership on this. I know this is something that's been working on for a long time, and Denise is also here. She can answer any of the in-depth questions that you may have about this. I'll say broadly, we're excited about this opportunity. I think it can help us create the workforce housing we need in Buckhead. Cost of housing is very high in Buckhead, and it's hard to come by. And so this follows a couple of years of work with HRNA, a consulting firm that looked at what the best type of program could be for this, and it would partner with employers and Denise and her team made a lot of headway on employers that want to participate in this program. But in short, it would provide employer-sponsored housing, and this would help supplement the first year and change of that program to help get it off the ground. And we think it can grow from there. But being able to provide subsidized housing in Buckhead so that employees who live there can also work there, and this funding would help make that happen.
All right. Any questions, comments from colleagues? There's a motion to approve by Westmoreland, second by Winston. I am just real quick curious, the $250,000, do we know what pot of what account is that coming out of?
This comes out of the housing programs portion of the Housing Trust Fund.
Okay, thank you. All right, there's a motion and a second. Please open the vote.
The vote is open. And the vote is closed.
And the item is favorable, 5 yeas, 0 nays. All right, that takes us to our next item, number 13. Please sound the caption.
23R4440, a resolution by Councilmember Howard Shook authorizing the mayor or his designee to enter into an intergovernmental agreement between the City of Atlanta, the Housing Authority of the City of Atlanta, the Georgia State Historic Preservation Officer, and Evergreen Redevelopment LLC for the purposes of preserving elements preserving elements and constructing an addition to the annex of the property known as the First Methodist Church of Atlanta and Atlanta First United Methodist Church, a property that is eligible for inclusion on the National Register of Historic Places located at 360 Peachtree Street Northeast, Atlanta, Georgia 30308, and for other purposes.
All right, we have Director Genevieve Jones. Get your title right this time. Good to see you with the Department of Grants and Community Development. Do you mind tell us a little bit about this paper and we'll take action?
Absolutely, thank you. So this resolution is to allow us to enter into an IGA because as we have our own Section 106 within the city. However, Atlanta Housing does have to go through the State Historic Preservation Office. So this does allow us to work with Atlanta Housing and the State Preservation Office to enter an IGA for this property, which is a historic landmark.
Okay. Any questions or comments from colleagues? See, now I'll go ahead and move approval. Is there a second? Second by Winston. Please open the vote.
The vote is open. The vote is closed.
Thank you.
All right, item is favorable, 5 yeas, 0 nays. Thank you so much. Next item.
Item number 14, 23R4447, a resolution by Councilmember Amir Faroki authorizing the contribution of a total amount not to exceed $100,000.00 to the Candler Park Conservancy to support the construction of a new playground in Candler Park, and authorizing the Chief Financial Officer to make payments from the account number listed herein and for other purposes.
All right. I recognize this is a donation paper from a council office, but Deputy Commissioner Voss, I don't know if you had any, simple thumbs up will do it. Just curious if y'all had any issues. Seeing none, I'll go ahead and move. Motion to approve by Westmoreland, I'll second. Please open the vote.
The vote is open. And the vote is closed.
The item is favorable, 5 yeas, 0 nays. Item number 15, next item.
23R4448, a resolution by Councilmember Amir Faroki to extend the existence of the Reproductive Justice Commission for a period of 36 months, effective from January 1st, 2024 through December 31st, 2026, to change the composition from 7 members to 8 and for other purposes.
All right, colleagues, there's an ask from the author of this paper to hold this paper. I believe there's another version of this that will appear before us, with either an amendment to this paper or another version of this paper. So just be aware of that. There's a motion to hold by Westmoreland. I will second. Please open the vote.
The vote is open. And the vote is closed.
And the motion to hold is favorable, 5 yeas, 0 nays. Next item.
Item 16, 23R4453, a resolution by Councilmember Liliana Bakhtiari authorizing the City of Atlanta to donate a total amount not to exceed $350,000.00 to In-Town Collaborative Ministries, Inc., In-Town Cares, pursuant to Section 6-306 of the City of Atlanta's Charter, to support place-based street outreach and rehousing through In-Town Cares Homeless Services Program, authorizing the mayor or his designee to enter into any necessary agreements to effectuate the donation, to authorize the chief financial officer or his designee to make the donation authorized hereby and from the accounts listed herein and for other purposes.
All right, Mr. Humphreys or Councilmember Bakhtiari, I know which one of y'all wanted to speak to this.
Well, Mr. Humphreys dressed up so nicely, I would hate for him to waste his blazer. So go right
trying to
ahead,
match
sir.
you today.
Oh, you look so nice and handsome.
Hey, everyone. So this paper, donate $350,000 to In-Town Cares. This builds on some work that was started by Councilmember Bakhtiari and Westmoreland and East Atlanta Village, but looks at expanding capacity of place-based street outreach and wraparound case management in really kind of specific areas where issues exist. This will work in partnership with Continuum of Care and Catherine Bassel and her team to add additional capacity there as needed. And at the end of the day, we're building a lot of supportive housing. We're doing a lot of rapid housing, but there are still residents that don't have shelter, and this will help address them in the interim as we work to house as many residents as possible.
Councilmember Bakhtiari.
Please, thank you. So, wonderful job, Mr. Humphries, eloquent as always. I also wanted to add on to this and say that I'm very excited. I'm very grateful to Mr. Humphries and to the administration for their help on this, and to East Atlanta. That really was a neighborhood that got this off the ground. A lot of times, the folks who are unsheltered in our communities that have been through this, as you heard Partners for Home say earlier, they have been through the revolving door of city services over and over and over again, and are oftentimes hesitant to trust anyone who comes and asks for help. So we need to have a diversity of tactic, because there's a diversity of people that are on the streets. And so with this program, having someone in town has by far the largest outreach team, has the highest retention rate of their team. Their folks have decades of experience, and this will really help build trust in the community to get people and help people walk through what is a very high barrier process to get housed, while also identifying potential areas where we can actually build housing for those individuals. And another added benefit of this is having someone on the ground regularly also allows us to identify other illicit activities that are happening in the community as well, which has already proven a huge benefit. So I move to approve, and again, thank you.
All right. The motion by Bakhtiari is a second by Winston. I do have a quick question, similar with the other high dollar donation that we processed earlier. I'm curious, funding that's attached to this, what accounts is it coming from? And then kind of a follow-on question, recognizing that this is intended to identify individuals to do this work going forward. Sat through a couple of presentations today with some other city departments, and we talk about staffing challenges, just funding available for those people, but we still have some trouble hiring those individuals for various reasons. I don't know if in the conversations y'all have had with in-town, if y'all foresee there be any challenges in terms of recruiting the staff that we need to do this work on the ground. So those two questions.
Sure. So this also pulls from the programs portion of the Housing Trust Fund that was allocated by council recently. And as far as the staffing challenges ramp up, one of the immediate next steps of this is refining the scope with them on which specific districts and the best way to move forward some of the stuff that Councilmember Bakhtiari mentioned. And so I think that will buy us some time from the staff up as we're refining the scope, also establishing that. And I think that at the end of the day, this will serve as a pilot, and we'll learn things on it, right? Like we'll expand that and like look at the staffing that we need, figure out right sizing salary and things like that are really important. And so this allows some room for that. And then once we learn after this first year, we can expand as necessary once we've got a more refined kind of salary bands and the like in place.
Thank you. There's a motion and a second. Please open the vote.
The vote is open. The vote is closed.
All right, the item is favorable, 5 yeas, 0 nays. I think this is our next item.
Item number 17, 23R4539, a resolution by Community Development and Human Services Committee authorizing the mayor or his designee on behalf of the City of Atlanta to accept a donation from Art in the Paint Corporation and Cash App LLC to the Department of Parks and Recreation of improvements valued at approximately $20,000.00, which will include refurbishing backboards, repainting courts and court lines, and other repairs at Brownwood Park, located at 602 Brownwood Avenue Southeast, Atlanta, Georgia 30316, and for other purposes.
All right, Deputy Commissioner Boss, good to see you.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and members of council. This resolution accepts a donation from the Cash App Foundation and Art in the Paint. One thing I wanted to mention is we had excellent support from the neighborhood for this project, as well as the East Atlanta Kids Club. Art in the Paint actually just completed 2 additional courts for us, one at your park at Reverend James Orange, which I think is actually still ongoing, and a beautiful installation they just finished at Deerwood Parks. This has been a great program for us. We're looking forward to additional improvements at Brownwood Park. We actually, if you remember, Coco Goff and the actress Storm Reed were in town. Their foundation is producing funds for the playground and tennis courts, which we expect this spring. So appreciate the support all these groups have given the Parks Department, and if you have any questions, happy to answer.
All right, any questions for Deputy Commissioner Voss? Well, with that, I'll go ahead and move approval. Didn't realize that Cash App had a foundation, but I
did not either, but they've
put
been
that in the back of
fantastic.
my brain, so that might be useful down the line. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Westmoreland. Any discussion? See none, please open the vote.
The vote is open.
Looking at it.
And the vote is closed.
The item is favorable, 4 yeas, 0 nays. All right, colleagues, that concludes our regular items on our agenda. We do have one item coming off of held. This is item number 42, resolution 23-R-4341, relating to a donation of $1 million to the Boys and Girls Club of Metro Atlanta. There is a substitute for this item. I believe we held it because we had to get some account string information figured out, and I believe that was all successfully figured out. So I'll go ahead and move to bring forward the substitute.
Second.
The second by Westmoreland. Please open the vote.
The vote is open. The vote is closed.
And the motion to bring forward the substitute is favorable, 4 yeas, 0 nays. Mr. Evans, if you can sound the caption.
It's 23R-4341, a resolution by Councilmember Matt Westmoreland is substituted by CDHS, authorizing the City of Atlanta to donate a total amount not to exceed $1 million and 0 cents, payable in 2 equal installments of $500,000 and 0 cents from the fiscal year 2024 budget and the fiscal year 2025 budget to Boys and Girls Club of Metro Atlanta pursuant to Section 6-306 of the City of Atlanta's Charter to support the Atlanta Year of the Youth Safe Spaces program, authorizing the mayor or his designee to enter into any necessary agreements to effectuate the donation and to authorize the chief financial officer or his designee to make all payments from the accounts listed herein and for other purposes.
All right. Colleagues, I don't believe our designated speaker is here today, but Councilmember Westmoreland, since you're the author of the paper or sponsor of the paper, would you like to add any remarks?
Move approval.
There's a motion by Westmoreland. Was there a second? Okay, second by Winston. All those in favor to approve, the motion is to approve on substitute, just to clarify. Please open the vote.
The vote is open. And the vote is closed.
The item is favorable on substitute, 4 yeas, 0 nays. Colleagues, there is no walk-in legislation. We are at general remarks. Any general remarks? I have a couple. Actually, I'm going to ask my colleague, Councilman Winston, if you can give us an update on the work session. There's some emails that I haven't fully read yet, and whether or not it's a dual work session and so forth and so on. But if you could share that with the public, that'd be great.
Yes, Mr. Chair. As of this morning, we have a new date set, which is December the 7th at 10 a.m. So from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m., we'll have a, still saying joint at this moment, work session to discuss recent flooding issues, mainly that stem from September the 14th, when the city experienced significant flooding throughout the city. So looking forward to having everyone join us for that work session on December the 7th at 10 a.m.
December the 7th at 10 a.m. That's Pearl Harbor Day. So the other update that I have, thank you. Before I give my update, I do want to just going back to the legislation that we just voted on, Resolution 23-R-4341, which was the $1 million donation to Boys and Girls Club of Metro Atlanta. That is a dual referred item, and I know several of our committee members are on the Finance Committee, so that will be on the Finance Executive Committee agenda for tomorrow at 1 o'clock, 1:30? 1:30, we'll go with that.
1:30 sounds
I've been off the committee for a year and I've already forgotten. All right, just the last thing I have is that y'all heard there was one item that we held because it's going to be on the upcoming CDP amendments public hearing. That public hearing will be on Monday, November 27th at 6 o'clock p.m. It'll be in person right here in these Marvin S. Arrington Senior Atlanta City Council chambers. We'll likely, we'll see if it's myself or Councilmember Westmoreland who is chairing that particular hearing. But I do want to extend once again an invitation to all my colleagues, whether you serve on this committee or you serve on any committee on Atlanta City Council, to join us for that quarterly hearing. We have such a phenomenally fun time here in these chambers at 6 o'clock p.m. on a Tuesday. So I hope you all join us. With that,
I'll be here. I'll be here if you're not, and not if you are.
Okay. All right, we are adjourned.